welcome. We thank you for tuning in to this episode of GAG Admin Chat. We are doing Wandavision. This is episode 3. We are up to episode 3. The slow burn of a fantastic series. Hopefully you've been enjoying this, and whether you've been enjoying it or not, hopefully you've at least seen all 3 episodes before you decide to watch this, because this is spoiler review. So this is your warning right now. You are just you're like a minute in, and you have time to stop, go back and watch the episode before you ruin it and you are apart. But with us tonight, of course, I'm your host. I'm Sam. To my left there is Brent. Below me is Will. And a special guest tonight, we got Jeffrey. Always fantastic when we have Jeff on the call. So sit down, get your notepads out, get ready to learn some shit, because I shut up when Jeff talked. That's just what it is. Like, Jeff got something to say. Honestly, and the funny thing is, when Jeff got something to say or Will got something to say, you know what I'm saying? I'll argue with Tony, and me and Brent just kind of go back and forth anyway. Like, we have a discussion. Brent and I have a discussion. Me and Tony argue, and I'm always curious to see what y'all got to say. So that's how it goes down. And we've got some exciting news here. Let me just get this little bit out the way real quick. We are now officially an affiliate. Somebody has asked us to be an affiliate. TrendyLEDproducts.com. We are an affiliate with this website. They have a variety of collectibles and LED merchandise. A lot of cool stuff on the website. You can actually save 15% if you use the code GROWNAGeeks. All one word. Doesn't matter if it's capital or lowercase. All one word. GROWNAGeeks. Save an additional 15%. Pricing is actually pretty good to start. They've got some really cool stuff on there. I saw a Rick and Morty mousepad, LED mousepad that I plan on getting. They've got a Xbox LED lamps, face mask. They've got the toilet bowl LED, so no more turning on the light in the middle of the night. It's a lot of cool stuff. So make sure to check out TrendyLEDproducts.com. Get that 15% off with GROWNAGeeks as your checkout code. TrendyLEDproducts.com. All right, with that said, let's talk about WandaVision. I am still enjoying the show. I'm still having a great time with it. Make sure to go back and check out the last episode we did, where we covered episodes 1 and 2. Hear me have my little moment where I kind of snapped.
Was there a key word or a key phrase that pushed the button?
There might be something you can say that to me feels like a lazy argument. I just want to be clear. I don't have a problem with someone not liking something. You know what I'm saying? What I don't like is the bandwagon mentality that so many people have when it comes to different things. It's like we're kind of, first of all, we're already, so many people have realized that it's more popular to have the opinion that's negative, to have the negative opinion. That's the hot take. That's what's going to get you the most attention. So that by itself is bad enough. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will run out there and say, oh, this was horrible. I hated this. Everybody involved should just, stop acting altogether. Stop it. Stop it. Don't go overboard like that just because you didn't like that one thing that happened in the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, people forget. They act like they ain't grown up on some of the shit that we watched when we were younger. Some of the shit that we watch now. If Vin Diesel is still making Fast and Furious movies, do not tell me you didn't like Wonder Woman 84. Like, don't do that. So, but when people run out there and they're just like, oh yeah, this was trash. And then I'm like, why? It's like, because it is. Okay, this conversation's over. I'm not even going to engage at this point. You have nothing to say. And it's interesting because here we are, 3 episodes in on WandaVision, still getting a couple of mixed reviews. And it's not because it's not a good show. Let me just clarify that. It's not because it's not a good show. This is the same Kevin Feige who gave you 23 movies in the MCU that you all just ate up. Just love it.
Yeah.
But this ain't Endgame. This ain't Infinity War. This isn't Winter Soldier. This isn't Winter Soldier. This isn't Civil War. This is not one of those action-packed movies. And then this is not Thor: The Dark World either. Let me just be clear. I'm not trying to say it's like Iron Man 3. It's not that. It is a entirely new project, and it's something that requires a certain level of world building because, and we'll get into this might be a whole new world. Jeff.
Yeah.
Before we got on the call, you mentioned that there were a couple of things you wanted to say since you weren't on the initial preview call and you weren't able to be with us on our episode 1 and 2 call. I give you a little time if you want to recap, give us some opinions, give us some thoughts, bring us up
I think
where you are, and get us ready for episode 3.
Yeah, like I think obviously like just due to my job, like I have due to my job, I have like a certain level of like understanding about like what the show is before the show even came out. So it's actually not really surprising to me that like people are confused. And I think really like some of that confusion has to go back to like the marketing, right? Because they didn't just like market it as like WandaVision, a new sitcom coming to blah 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 blah, and like it wasn't in like black and white. You saw action scenes, you saw like scenes of like modern day things. So when you get this first episode and it's like 30 minutes, which Mandalorian has already kind of given us that like hour-long episode appetite for Disney Plus shows, and right. WandaVision comes in and it's 30 minutes and it's like a sitcom, but it's not. And people kind of have like issues with like 30-minute like dramas or dramedies. I mean, there are a lot of very, very good ones, but usually they're on like HBO, like Insecure, How to Make It in America, things like that, where it's like it's just a 30-minute show. And I think some of the marketing might have like confused people about what they were watching, because when you turn on that first episode and it literally just goes into like some Dick Van Dyke like style universe of with these two Marvel characters who you're not used to seeing in this context, you don't understand like what you're watching because you feel like this is the real world as opposed to like you're watching this like a TV show, which, gets revealed at the end of that first episode with, the sword
the
reveal,
notepad, the Persian
and
writing.
Yeah. And they're watching it on a TV show.
Yeah.
They're watching it as a TV show. And so we don't understand like universally like how any of this is like working.
A television show with these characters that we know exist. Even in that world, they exist.
Exactly. But like we're not seeing them as we're used to. There's no accent. Vision's technically supposed to be dead because of the timeline.
Well, in fairness, she lost that accent like 2 movies ago.
True,
so, but nowhere. It's like I'm American now.
So right. She lost that accent. That's and.
But even though she lost the accent,
I will credit that to her reality warping powers. She realized it sounded dumb and stopped.
Right. But even like how she's talking in the show, it's very like, well, honey,
it's definitely very over the top, and it is very time period appropriate.
Yes.
And they gave...
And I knew what I was walking into though, because I understood that you see this in episode 1 to 2 and even going into 3, how, like what you said on the last episode, she's kind of like mirroring these shows she would have probably been watching in Sokovia, and they probably wouldn't have had like all the newest stuff all the time. You were talking about, kind of Marvel's equivalent of like like the Ukraine or something like that, like a former Soviet like stronghold that didn't right. We know what that is. We know what Sokovia like really is. So I kind of knew what I was walking into, and having kind of prior knowledge to the whole like sitcom decade shift thing being a narrative device, I was already at ease with what I was seeing in episode 1 because I knew how it was going to propel the story. So I understand like the mindset of somebody who walks in episode 1 and episode 2. And then even with episode 1 and 2, unless you watch Dick Van Dyke and then you watch like, Bewitched, and you like that's a hard shift to see because one is still black and white. So visually, you don't get the shift in narrative that you get when it goes from 50s to 60s, when it goes from Bewitched to In Color Bewitched, which like you called that out before. Like most of us, if we watched Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie, we watched it in black and white and we watched it in color as well. So that was like
didn't
a show
really catch or pay attention that there was that shift because it was a natural shift that occurred in our lifetime kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's no different than talking about a record player going to a cassette player, going to a CD, going to an MP3. It's a natural progression of technology.
And you skipped the 8-track.
I did skip the 8-track. I apologize. I skipped the 8-track. But it's
that's
that
good
natural progression, and it's the way people understand things to be. So because it's a normal transition, they don't think about it. And they don't realize the restrictions that would have existed at a particular time. And there's some things in place that, you know what I'm saying, like some of the little Easter egg items, if they miss those, fine. I can accept that maybe they didn't catch.
Like I don't expect you to notice that like the cabinet is painted with like Vision's like Mind Stone or the logo from like what's Monica Rambeau's Photon.
Sword?
No, not that.
Photon.
Photon, like the logo from her costume is like painted on the front of the like magic case. Gotcha. I get it. Like if you don't pick that up,
even if somebody doesn't catch that Vision almost tripped over the chair, but phased through it because he's Vision. If you don't get that Dick Van Dyke,
if you've never seen Dick Van Dyke, you don't get that.
You know what I'm saying? Because even watching Dick Van Dyke, you know what I'm saying? It's like to watch that today. That's like really silly and almost foolish slapstick comedy. Like, why was that entertaining then? But it's also like, if you watch I Love Lucy, no, this is how would people fall for that, And even with like there's different Easter eggs and different callbacks and different things that are in the episodes. And if somebody doesn't get those specific references, I'm okay with that. I think the bigger issue for the average viewer is only being familiar with MCU characters and not having the
comic book background.
So they don't have context to fill in those gaps. And it becomes an issue of I can only judge what I see on screen. And only because it's Jeff on here, I'm going to say this as carefully as I can so that we don't trip over that rabbit hole yet again. But oftentimes with comic book movies, there is a certain level of...
Just say his name.
No, shut up. Oftentimes with comic book movies or comic book TV series in this case, regardless of company, there is a certain history requirement. There's a certain amount of knowledge that they expect you to have coming in. And more times than not, the level of knowledge that either the writer or the director has sometimes works against them because they expect the viewer to have that much information. They want you to kind of fill in some of those gaps. And I
also think. Oh
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I also think it's a matter of anybody who like works in a creative field, there's two different types of creators. One where you just like take a blank canvas and you just like go to work, and whatever comes out of it comes out of it, right? So like for instance, like I don't think it was like, I think maybe it was Leonardo da Vinci, but one of the like great like Renaissance sculptures of all time kind of said like, I don't like decide what I'm sculpting. I get a piece of marble, the sculpture is in there. It is my duty to discover it and to like chisel it out. And so there's like that mindset. And then there's the creative mindset of like finished product. Here's how I like work backwards from where I am now. Yeah, product. Reverse engineering. And I think that a lot of times with shows like this, you could tell this is a show where there's a lot of reverse engineering that you kind of have to do as a viewer, because it was written reverse engineered. It was like they came up.
Here's our end game, exactly, and let's get to this point.
Because once like the big reveal of like what the true like what's really happening is there, it's going to make you then go back through every episode and be like, oh, when this happened, that really meant that. And when this happened, it really meant that. And then when this came down. So like, if you're not the kind of person who likes to like unravel like mysteries or just be patient and let a show like develop, yeah, you're probably going to think WandaVision is trash because I'm especially if you compare it to like Mandalorian, where Mandalorian kind of worked on two levels, right? Mandalorian had the like, this is the baddie of the week, what's happening in this episode, but then here's like the overarching like season long like arc that we're doing as well. So you end each episode with some level of satisfaction as a viewer, because you're like, something happened, something was resolved, and then our larger plot was moved forward. We're on a show right now with WandaVision where it's like, we don't know what the fuck is going on. We don't know what is happening. I
specifically pointed out that one of the biggest issues with the sitcom format is that we've become so accustomed to having all the issues resolved in 22 minutes. So not only are we not resolving them in 22 minutes, we're actually getting like a full 34 minutes because there's no commercials. You're watching on a streaming service.
But here's the kicker.
But it takes two episodes to get anything to happen.
But you actually are getting those same resolutions on two different levels.
Oh yeah.
Because first episode, I think the issue is people don't know they're going into it and it's going to be a sitcom. So people aren't like really laughing at it like you would if you sit down, you watch Dick Van Dyke. You're like, this is a sitcom. My mindset is I'm here to be amused. But when you go into Marvel something, you're like, this is Marvel. I'm here to like see action, character development, these things. And we're not necessarily looking for that humor. So people just completely overlook the humor of the first episode. And they don't know what the anniversary is.
Like what's really funny, my wife and I sat there, and because we both grew up on those television shows, and I mentioned it, Dick Van Dyke was the only show so far that I've not been at, like, I don't remember watching that show, but every other show they've done, I watched those shows. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, I knew those exact references. I knew those specific elements that were on the show. And it was very nostalgic in a way. It felt like I was watching, like in the most recent episode, it felt like I was watching the Brady Bunch, right to the stairs, and you know what I'm saying, the way the stairs are set up. And watching the other episodes, it was like watching Bewitched, and that was one of the shows that, like, even as a kid, I remember I enjoyed that show. And Nick at Night brought it back, and it was really cool there. And she did the little ding-a-ding-a-ding with her nose, you know what I'm saying? But like Wanda, she has those goofy hands, but it's the same concept, you know what I'm saying? And like you used to see, and even with like I Dream of Jeannie, which honestly, I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched are like the Ford and Chevy pickups of the same concept. So it's like they're really the same
right
show.
down to the animated like opening.
Right, so it's like it's one of those things where it's kind of the same concept, but it's just done differently, and that's what I got, and so it was, for me, it was enjoyable, and that's one of those things. And I even pointed out that I think that's one of the problems that some people are going to have, because a lot of the people who are going to be the really, I can't say the really big fans, but like a lot of the MCU fans aren't even old enough to appreciate those shows.
So
they would have never watched those shows.
And that segues into my next point. Because the show is reverse engineered, and like there's a lot of shows out there that are reverse engineered, but a lot of them are like Netflix, Hulu, released all at one time. So you can watch at whatever speed you want to watch at, stop when you want to stop, keep moving forward. When you think about, like, I think like you have to think about like the viewer psychology of today when you decide to release a show that's going to be released weekly. Because people are going to have to wait, set either, and then you have to like understand
this shit
as a
is
company
as bad
how
as
you're going to.
Same bat channel, same bat time. Like, are you kidding me? I got to wait for a whole week to find out what the hell that means?
In a pandemic? Like, I'm already not going nowhere, doing nothing. Like, yeah, and I think like that's one of those, and you have to like decide as a company, like I really think that if they're gonna like evaluate WandaVision's performance, they should start looking at like what they should look at, like who's binging like episode 1 through 5, like who watched like episode 1 and 2 and then came back in episode 8 and watched everything straight through, because I think that this is the kind of show where it's like writers and like creators and musicians. Honestly, we think people want to be like left with mystery and shit, and like we think it's like funny and cool
we want
for cliffhangers. People hate that shit, man. Like I remember I was watching the X-Files. I was watching the X-Files on Netflix like a long time ago, and there was a season finale where Mulder like was in a train or something, and something blew up, and you didn't know if Mulder died. And then the next episode was season 1. And I was like, yo, do you know what I would have done if I had to wait a whole summer to see if this dude died? It would have been a wrap.
Let me tell you something. To this day, there was a TV show with Michael Chiklis, No Ordinary Family.
Yes.
One season.
Yeah.
And it was a great season.
I watched it. It was so good.
I thought it was such a great season. And that last episode,
fam,
they literally did that thinking they were getting a second episode. They were getting a second season. There's no way you would have ended that without already having a second season written and planned out. It wasn't like they did that hoping. They did that thinking that there was another season. Yeah. Alphas, do you remember that?
I remember it, but I didn't watch it.
I'm going to just say this. It's a fantastic show. Do not watch it. Because if you watch Alphas, the way it just kind of cuts off, you know what? Anybody who's ever been a fan of Firefly, you get you get the point I'm making.
Firefly.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Terra Nova, when you Almost Human.
Exactly. Oh, Almost Human. You know what I'm saying? Like when you don't get that resolution, that is the worst thing. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing how frequently I think WandaVision would probably have benefited in terms of viewer popularity at this point had it been a bingeable series.
Yeah, for sure.
Disney has already decided, and they kind of let us know with Mandalorian, that they are going to do weekly episodes. And you know, there's a part of me that
I enjoy that, honestly.
I was about to say, you know what?
It keeps you coming back to keep your streaming service, because you need to come back the next week to finish what you're doing.
Oh, from the marketing standpoint, it's brilliant. Like, if Netflix didn't have so much for me to go through, I promise you, not as many people would have Netflix as they do if Netflix had been doing weekly for all this time. It is,
but I think
it is
like
the sheer volume of library that Netflix has that makes that streaming service what it is. Same with Hulu, same with Amazon Prime. You know what I'm saying? Like being able to, because those three are notorious. Like they have all of their content right there, and that's what's keeping them afloat. Disney Plus is new. DC Universe is about to become DC Infinite, but they did the same thing. Because Titans, I had to watch that weekly. Stargirl, I had to watch that weekly. Swamp Thing, I had to watch that weekly. And
HBO does the same thing.
Right. The HBO is even doing the same thing. You know, and it's like they're getting back to, I think it's 50% to make sure that you stay along with them and 50% to give them time to create. I'm gonna tell you how far
also,
back.
I think can I
Game of
hop in
Thrones.
too?
I'm gonna go back to Game of Thrones because we haven't really discussed Game of Thrones. Britt brought up Westeros the other day. Thank you, but
and I got slaughtered.
Nobody's talked about Game of Thrones in quite some time after season 8, but Game of Thrones was one of those things that they did an episode a week or every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And it was like that was your fix for the whole week. Like you had to wait for that next episode and you waited to see what was going to happen next. And even though we hate that suspense because we've become spoiled having full access, microwave society, everything right here all the way, binge, we don't take time to appreciate.
Yep.
And
that's what I was going to say.
That's kind of what this show is doing. It's making us appreciate, because if nothing else, I've gotten in the habit, like I am beginning to get back into, I want to figure it out before the episode ends. And this is the kind of show, like there is no who done it. There's nothing for me to figure out. I have to wait and see what they're going to show me. But because I know it's like that, I'm looking at every detail I can while I'm watching, and I'm so like laser focused on the episodes.
Like think about it like this. If they had released all the episodes of WandaVision, we would have all binged it in a weekend and done one episode on Grown A Geeks about it and just glossed over so much shit. Maybe it would have been a 2-hour episode or whatever, but like we would have watched it and definitely had to out of our psyche in a weekend.
Yeah,
and we just would not have like given
actually
it its due
talked
and
about
it
the
wouldn't have
episodes.
been appreciated. So I think like it's actually like a good thing, and I think it kind of provides like balance to like Netflix like binge. Like yeah, I'm gonna watch like a bunch of episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine tonight, but I have been looking forward to like the Friday releases, like Friday when I get up and I turn on my Apple TV and there's that screenshot of the Mandalorian up there for a new episode. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a new episode of WandaVision where I've had a week to talk about it, to talk to you guys, to look at all the great threads on Grown A Geeks, all the great articles, really like digest it. So as it's world building, I'm also world building. And, you know, obviously like different people have different levels of like involvement and investment, but giving things time to breathe is actually really, really important sometimes. But I think that it's been a long time since people have encountered a show that has time to breathe and is also reverse engineered. Because once it's all over, I feel like if you were to actually binge WandaVision, you'd be like, oh, that was like a really great like mini series. You know what I mean? Because if you just split all of them up into kind of like 2-hour chunks, like this is Monday night, this is Tuesday night, this is Wednesday night, like in like a mini series or something like that, you probably would be like, oh yeah, I like get that part 1, part 2, part 3. But because we're getting it in like smaller doses, 30-minute format, a format we're not really used to like seeing in a show like this.
To be continues at the end of the episode.
Exactly.
I think that would give me that would make me feel better. Because at least then I feel like the expectation would be met. So walk us through the first 2 episodes from your perspective. Because we've already dissected those 2 episodes. And I got to give a shout out to Cole Kushner because I said Dissected. I love that podcast on Spotify. But take us through
For me,
episodes 1 and 2.
I think the first 2 episodes were like interesting because I kind of went into it at a little bit more of an advantage because I knew about the like sitcom thing. I knew like the first 2 episodes are going to be in black and white. I hope Marvel actually releases like some of the like behind the scenes stuff because some people I work with were able to like go to set, and then I was able to sit on like sit in like some review panels where like the set designer was there and kind of talked about like all the like behind the scenes tricks that they studied and used and the vintage fabrics, and I mean stuff like that. I just find it like fascinating how the lengths that they go to for like authenticity on shows like this. Because like, you know, you could have just went to like J. Crew and bought a sweater and did whatever. But like,
you know what? They give whole Academy Awards for like wardrobe and costume design. And 90% of the time, those movies are period pieces. And that right there speaks to how important it is. Because like, let me tell you something. Everybody was talking shit about Blue Jean Guy from Mandalorian.
Yep.
He was revered on every Star Wars site I saw.
I mean, whether he's revered, talking shit, however you look at it, the point is...
he was out of place.
He's supposed to be there. Not one time have we seen blue jeans exist in the Star Wars universe. Yeah. We've seen linen, we've seen silk, we've seen everything.
A lot of different
pants.
Not
seen denim. And Boba Fett could have had denim in Return of the Jedi, and I would have been totally okay with that shit for the time, but he ain't have it. So it's just, I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's like it just goes like Jeff was saying, the level of detail that's put into these different things. I mean, the
thing to me about production design is like, if you like, you should notice it like in terms of like, yes, it's setting the scene, but if you like notice it, somebody did something wrong. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. If it doesn't feel right, if it's
got to blend in a certain level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, you know, they had a real challenge of like, people are going to be watching this on HD TVs.
4K
and they don't
TVs.
film in black and white anymore. Or 4K, all kinds of like detailed. And you're using methods that traditionally were done on like tube TVs. You know,
let me tell you something.
You know, so
every time we watch something like certain shows, and shout out to Disney Plus for putting a lot of their content HDR and 4K and whatnot. Whenever we watch, anytime my wife sits down to watch something with me, if it's like an event, we're gonna watch something. We tend to watch it on her TV. Last TV we bought her, she has the 4K TV. I've got a plasma and I've got an LED. She has the 4K. Love you, babe. When we watch this series, you can see a visual shift right down. Like, I'm almost curious if they even changed the way they filmed it. Like,
yes.
What's the guy?
Yeah, I don't know what
Chris
kind
Nolan?
of cameras.
I got feelings about him. We got to do a show about Chris because I got some thoughts. But, you know, Christopher Nolan is known for the way he shoots, the way he directs, and the way he films certain things. You know what I'm saying? Because for him, it's all about a visual. There's another director who should not be named who's also very, very key on the way the visual impacts the scene.
Why would you say that name?
No, we're not going down this road.
Awesome. That was awesome, though. That was awesome. But, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it really does make a difference. And in this particular episode, there was a specific scene in the episode where it's in 4:3 ratio for the entire episode. And then right there, after some events take place, it goes from the 4:3 to the 16:9, which is a more current aspect ratio for television, which is basically for those people who hopefully understand that. But if you don't, whenever you like put a movie in or you're watching a TV show and you see the black bars on the side of the screen, that's because it's showing it in a 4:3 ratio, which is designed for your old school CRT
Square
tube
TVs.
television. It was a square. There was no such thing as widescreen. And you had a problem with it because you were like, I don't want those black bars at the top and the bottom. Why doesn't it take up the whole image? And you had to like zoom in order to get that to go away. So going from 4:3 to 16:9 is a time indicator. It shows that we've moved from this point to this point. Or perhaps maybe in this episode, it indicates that we are no longer in the fantasy world and maybe we're coming back to the real world. And that's the part I want to dive into next, because we could literally do, and we may just have to, we could literally do a straight up podcast. We could do a 2-hour conversation on the psychology of television. You know what I'm saying? Like right down to the marketing, right down to the commercials, how they put commercials in at different times, because that's exactly what the hell you do. So I know we could fill up 2 hours of just talking about that part of it. But for WandaVision, and specifically for episode 3, I feel like the big takeaway from this episode is change. It's change. It is, things are not normal. And we finally get a little bit of that. And there's a really big thing that I picked up accidentally, and then I verified it later. So we were talking about streaming services. They record these streaming services in like all these different languages. And because Marvel has programmed me to look for after credit scenes,
yeah,
I sit through all the credits. I've already had some stuff spoiled, and I'm air quoting for those of you who are listening. I've already had some stuff spoiled in episode 1. In the first episode. No. It was the second episode.
Oh, I know.
Right. The radio.
But that.
So,
yeah.
Disney Plus, when they run the credits, the US version of the credits is different than the credits in any other language. Because, you know, they record all these things in all these multiple languages. So if you look through the credits on episode 2, you will see a name that stands out. And if that name stands out to you, you can do a little bit of research and that'll come up, and it gives you a lot of information. And that starts to bring more questions, and then your mind will start to fill in the blanks.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I also think that was like public knowledge from just the casting.
And that's another thing, because when I saw the episode with the magic show, and I saw Geraldine, I already knew who the actress was.
Yeah.
I'm like, who the
and it's already been revealed who she is.
I'm like, who the fuck is Geraldine? Geraldine? No, that's Monica Rambeau. I know exactly who that is. And of course,
see, I like
you do like a
that.
20-second Google search on Monica Rambeau, and you're like, oh wow, that's who that is.
But see, here's the thing. That works on 2 levels, because, okay, let's say you're not like us and you're not going to do that research, or you don't already have the information because, you know, you have a job that allows you certain privileges. Like, it doesn't answer. It still just creates more questions when you know who she is.
Correct.
So you have like a slight advantage over other viewers,
also
but you
where
don't
we go back to the reverse that reverse engineering, because you run in, I won't say you run into a problem, but you have that situation where you take someone who has all of that comic book knowledge, who knows who this character is just based on the name of the character. Oh, you said this name? Oh, well, she's been this person, that person, that person. There's 4 different people that she could be. She worked with this team, that team, the other team. And you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have that repertoire available to you, if you have that base of knowledge available to you, you start to create. You start to create your own hypothesis of what could be. You might be way the hell off because that's not the direction they're going. They have 4 different routes they could go. Which one are they going to do? So, of course, I'm going to come back next week because I need to know if my theory was right. And if it's wrong, I still got something new out of it.
But even if you don't have that information, you're still creating theories. Because if you're the kind of person who creates theories, you just are always going to create theories. It's just the information is, I feel like, honestly, what they're doing is super difficult because, like,
how do you maintain suspense in this day and age?
Exactly.
Brent,
well, I'm
gonna put Brent on the spot real quick, just because he's getting really deep in his comic knowledge, but he's not there yet. I know he's not. So, how did you feel about the character Geraldine in episode 3?
Didn't have too many thoughts, really.
So nothing about her stood out.
No, are you talking about the chick that got basically yeeted through the barrier?
That's the one.
Isn't she the grown-up daughter of that one chick who was the friend of Captain Marvel?
Okay. That right there tells me that one of our very own geeks, an admin no less, and I'm not calling you out for that, it wasn't something that stuck out in his mind to say, I need to know what this means. He didn't look it up. He hasn't researched it, because there's already, like, I know Screen Rant, Looper, and comicbook.com, all 3 of them have done videos on just her.
Yep.
And the fact that you don't have that definitive information is good. That means Marvel's actually doing their job, because you're still wondering, who is she? Even though she's been, like, that character's damn near ruined for me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like so much is available to be found out about her. Will, did Geraldine, and I'm being I know this is the spoiler episode, but I'm still going to try to play through it. Did Geraldine stand out for you at all? Was there anything about her in particular?
Besides her being the only black person.
Look,
there's the neighbor about it that was cutting through the wall.
Yeah, him too. Yeah,
I don't want to talk about it because, I mean, we still got to go over what happened in episode 3. I can't really speak too much on her in that part.
We literally
haven't gone through the rest of it.
You know what? Okay, so you are absolutely right. We have gone through the Let's see. We've covered the psychology of the show.
The background,
we've covered
the
background.
Setting.
We've covered the time. We've covered the settings. We've covered some of the Easter eggs. Will, walk us through episode 3.
All right, episode 3. The way episode 2 ended, it ended with Wanda pregnant, miraculously pregnant. So at that,
in color,
as we transition,
right, and in color. So at that. So
he got it.
So it's big transitions and stuff happening, and I think that was done on purpose in terms of the color transition, the baby transition, like everything kind of happened at once. It's like it's a big jump. This episode had a lot of little things about it with the whole settings and stuff like that. It's like how fast she's progressing. That's the first thing throughout the pregnancy. We don't know what's going on or why she's progressing as fast as she is. Is she moving her reality? Is it being moved for her? Like, what's going on? Because I was still trying to figure out, is this something that Wanda has going in terms of, is
she in control or is she being controlled?
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to figure out. So like that, and as
out of control.
Yeah, and as we saw the helicopter, crash and a few things, so that let me more know that, okay, that's actually her, It's not like she's plugged up somewhere and they're in her head doing this. No, this is physically her inside a structure, so on and so forth. So the progression of the pregnancy and stuff like that. The certain things that were being said, things that were said by the doctor, they came to check on us with that, trying to get out but can't really leave. Conveniently, your car breaks before you going on vacation, all that kind of stuff. The wall, I'm still trying to figure like what's the symbolism behind the breaking of the wall that the black guy was doing. That's what that.
Where he was like cutting the bushes and
end up cutting the wall and stuff like that. And like
probably trying to get out of that wall that was there at the very end of the episode. I don't know if that was a literal or something else going on.
Yeah, because I'm like, if you're using, hedge trimmers or something like that, you're not cutting a fucking brick wall. Something else, you got something way more powerful than that. Freaking cutting a brick wall. So it's like, what's going on there? So that, how much do people know? We've already discussed freaking Ogre. Her name slips by me freaking right now. The
Geraldine.
No, the other girl, the main girl, Agnes, and so like that. We already know Agnes is, somebody important. She's doing something, whatever. Again, we mentioned before that we still haven't seen her husband, and that trend is carrying on. But now,
Ralph this, Ralph that.
Yeah, but now it seems
Ralph.
She's very intent on knowing what's going on, like certain questions, asking about Geraldine. Oh, is she in there? What's going on? Like, there's a lot of little stuff that's going on, so like that. That's kind of. It seems
she's
like the
playing
world
chess and everyone else is playing checkers.
Yeah, it seems like the world is starting to break and stuff like that, and that's what I'm trying to see. Like, how far is the world going to break, and where is it going to go? With everything?
Oh no, not starting to break. We've already had at least 2 clear examples of that.
Yeah, I mean it's cracked, but
we've had 2 resets already.
Right.
Each episode,
and even Vision starting to wonder what the hell's going on.
That's what I was gonna say.
Vision had a hard reset in this episode.
But how were the resets done? Because think about it, so like that when he reset with the reset with the beekeeper, who did the reset?
That was clearly Wanda.
All right. So when the reset happened with Vision, I said, how did the reset happen?
Now, the episode 3 reset,
Wanda.
It took no, but it's still Wanda. But there were 2 different types of resets. The reset in episode 2 with the beekeeper, she sees it, she recognizes it. We hear her physically say, verbally, we hear her verbally say no. And when she said no, we got a rewind segment that took place. Visually, we saw the rewind take place and take them back to that scene prior to the man coming. The person with the octagon symbol on their back, or is it octagon? No, it's not octagon. A hexagon. A hexagon symbol in a beekeeper suit coming out of the sewer, which, as Will pointed out in the previous episode, for the Avengers video game, we already know about AIM. And for those of you who are like just wondering if AIM just came out of nowhere, go all the way back to Iron Man 3. I know we shit on Iron Man 3 all the time, but AIM was planted all the way back in Iron Man 3. So we have her saying
You were talking about the rewind. Yeah.
Right. We have her saying no, and we get that rewind segment. And then, if you notice, they didn't go with the same rewind segment this time when she reset. This time, he says to her, like, I think something's wrong. And, and she looks at him. If you look at her expression, she genuinely looks concerned. She looks upset. She looks distraught. There's a problem. She's not in control. She doesn't say no, like, don't do that. Not going to happen. Do it over.
The reality she created that is starting to fall apart.
Well, I have a theory on that too. It's like as she's moving, it's like think about. I'm starting to think about like
between a decision
the decades
and a reaction.
Well, I'm starting to think about the decades too as like a device to move forward through time. Also as like a device that kind of refers to her being able to like expand her powers more. So it's like each reset, she's like, okay, I can reset this, but I can do more. I can reset this, but I can handle more. I can handle color. I can handle more people. I can handle this, that, and the third. It's like the technology that you would have to use to reset something like within like a tape in episode 2 in that time period of the 60s is very different from like the editing capabilities they had in the 70s. So you might have to like
a
do a
rewind and re-record versus a splice it in.
Edit. Exactly. And so now as she gains her powers,
that's deep
now
as fuck.
Can she just splice?
I would not have put that together. I like that. Damn.
It's like rather than going back and redoing it, it's like I can just splice it like that. Like now you're getting closer and closer to be able to control and manipulate like current reality at your whim, as opposed to having to say, okay, I did this thing and I'm seeing what's going to happen. I don't like that. Rewind and do it again. It's like, I don't like how that happened. Boom, edit it.
But keep that in mind, so that when she's doing all this and stuff like that, it gives you more clarity, because if it's something real and stuff like that, and she can't rewind it or fix it, like I said, Geraldine, she can't rewind Geraldine to whatever it is that she needs before, so she expunged it. It had to go because it wasn't fitting her mode and stuff like that. So, and that's why the more and more you see with Vision and stuff like that, because we know Vision died, like that was it. And this right here, and the fact that she's able to rewind him, like that shows more he's a figment of her imagination.
The fact that she is willing to rewind him, and that he seems as lost as everyone else, but he seems to have more autonomy than everyone else, because they do that classic like Twilight Zone era thing where when people are trying to like break the mind control, it's like you're like talking around it. There's like the words in their minds that have probably been like blocked. They can't say they've been trapped. They can't say I can't escape, but they start like hinting at it, and it takes that shift from sitcom to like Twilight Zone vibe. Right. And like you start getting into that place where you start figuring out, okay, like these people are all trapped here.
Interesting Vision you say Twilight Zone.
Might also be.
So there's a specific episode of the Twilight Zone. Again, another black and white show. All the adults in this one particular community are conducting themselves a very specific way because they fear this one child who basically, like, think if Damien took over, how the way all adults would act around Damien. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how people act around Wanda. They smile and everything's great and everything's okay, but clearly they are even aware that something is not right. And let's just this is episode 3. This is a spoiler discussion. We've got the spoiler warning at the beginning. And if you've made it to this point so far and nothing has been spoiled, you need to cut it off, because we're about to break this thing all the way down. We ain't going to bite no words. We ain't going to hold no tongues. Let's put this out there. So in this episode, homegirl gets pregnant and she's already pregnant, but she goes through her entire pregnancy through delivery in like minutes.
30 minutes.
Not even like 22. Television 30 minutes. Like even Vision was like mathematically calculating based on how quickly she conceived when she was due, and even she exceeded those expectations. We see that her powers are beginning to take over, and she obviously controls a lot more than just what she is aware she's controlling, because a couple of times in the episode, things happen that she didn't expect or plan or mean to happen, which tells us that maybe she's beginning to lose control. That
usually when her emotions are triggered.
especially then.
And she's pregnant.
So her hormones are all over the chart. From what I understand, I've never had a child, and I can't pretend to like mansplain what happens.
I feel like you're mansplaining.
But it's like not even that. It's just like it's one thing to like.
I just feel like if one of my
it's one thing
was
to
on
build
here, I'd
a
be
life.
corrected for that.
It's one thing
we
to
know
like
who she
build
is.
a life that's like these are like people that I'm used to seeing on television. These are like archetypes.
These are the characters I expect.
Yeah, and then there's another thing to actually like be trying to create like life within you, and I think that's one of those like maybe she went a little one step too far with what she was trying to do to like reset and create like the perfect like suburban family life, and you know her powers were going like haywire all through the episode because like if you watch the like intro, like the first couple episodes, her powers were a little like Vision got hit in the head with a plate. This thing didn't work. Blah 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 blah. And then in this episode, when you see the like intro, her shit is like under control. She's like laying on the couch, like vacuuming the
reading
floor, reading a book.
Vacuuming.
It's like she's like.
Dog, I can't even like read something, and that when it comes to like letters, and the average human can't do it either. So it's not just like on some me shit. Like your brain can't process reading a word. Like you can read and talk, but what is it? Like you can't read and like you can do one or the other type thing. The fact that she's like reading a book and vacuuming at the same time, that is some complete separation of consciousness.
With magic.
Magic.
Ultra instinct type shit.
And it's like if you compare that to like in the first episode when stuff would like go haywire with her powers, she almost like expected it not to go well. But in this episode, when she like runs in the kitchen and she like sneezes or something and like her jacket changes and like it starts raining inside when her water breaks, like all the like kind of craziness.
She's surprised.
She's surprised by it and not like this kind of stuff happens all the time. Vision is like surprised by it. So it's like within each reset, as she like gains more control of her powers, like the things that throw her out of balance still remain like surprising. Whereas in the very beginning, she was just kind of like, Wanda was kind of just like, oh, like I'm still figuring this out. Like I'm figuring out how to be a wife. I'm figuring out how to like have this life. I'm figuring out how to use my powers and like live with someone. So and, like now it's like she's a seasoned vet and stuff is going haywire and like it does like that doesn't seem like what the plot of this TV show usually is.
So here's the thing. It's fun. Okay. So the plot of this TV show, we are 3 episodes in. I have a theory. First, let me ask you this. Can I ask you if you have a theory or do you already know? And
a theory about what? About like what's happening? Right. I know. So I know what's happening.
Okay. So then skip you. I know your NDA won't let you say anything past that.
You wouldn't want me to. You would be mad at me because
you could stop there.
You wouldn't want me to.
You could stop there.
You're good.
Look, that was why I opened with you. Does your NDA? Do you know? If you know, okay, cool. We're done with you. All right, we'll come back to you in a little bit. So here's the thing. As we are 3 episodes in, and I've seen kind of the setup and the structure. Now, I'm one of those people that like, I watch the trailer and then I wait for like the professionals to watch the trailer. And I watch the video reviews of the trailer. I watch the breakdowns of the trailer. I do my own breakdown of the trailer to compare to what they broke down in the trailer to see if there's something they caught that I missed or to see if I missed everything they caught, etc. Going all the way back to the beginning of the call, I get where a person could have watched this trailer and be a little disappointed at the stage we've arrived. However, if I watched that trailer and this is all I've gotten, this is just the salad before the steak comes out.
Yeah, literally tip of the iceberg.
Like, if I'm sitting here like upset that I have no food in front of me, but my waiter has brought me like 2 refills on my drinks, I've gotten my salad, they've checked on the table 3-4 times, they've updated me to let me know my food is on the way out. Like, what do you expect? What
McDonald's?
And that is literally going to be, much like you said, the person who isn't watching week to week because they watched the first episode, they watched the second episode, and they was like, nah, I'm not doing this. So they're going to wait and catch the whole 10 episodes
because when the reveal happens, everybody who stuck with it is going to be talking about it. And the people who didn't stick with it are going to be like, whoa, what the fuck? And then they're going to go back and they're going to rewatch the whole thing and keep up.
And again, this is the same Marvel that gave us all the movies they gave us leading up to Endgame. Why wouldn't you just stick with it and trust that they got you? Like, they not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Ain't no directors get swapped out in this. Ain't no reshoots.
Why would you say that name?
You know what I'm saying? Like, you good. You good, fam. Like, sit it down. Kevin Feige got you. Got you.
Well, it's like, I feel like everybody's just like, this is Marvel's first foray into TV. No, it's not.
No,
they did the whole Defenders series. Like, that was
Defenders.
Good.
Shield.
Right. Look, Will, you my boy, because I be trying to tell people about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's like, I get the first like 10 episodes were hard. Once they get to like Captain America Winter Soldier period where like S.H.I.E.L.D. like falls and like Hydra, like, it gets good. And from there, it's good. It's smart. People don't want to listen. Fine. Miss out. You're not missing anything because it doesn't connect to the MCU anyway. But the stories were interesting. The characters were dope.
But
your kids are gonna love it in 10 years and wonder why it wasn't a hit.
But actually, doesn't it connect?
It kind of does.
Like it doesn't so have a direct crossover. But one, we have Coulson.
That's the only direct crossover. That's the only thing
other than like Lady Sif in like an episode.
And then like the handful of references for time periods. Because even like the Netflix Marvel shows did that when they talked about the Battle for New York, and you know what I'm saying, they made reference.
But think about this. Think about
destruction
this.
At the Hulk.
In the last few seasons of Inhumans of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans have been a major part of the storyline. You haven't heard about no fucking Inhuman in any of the Avengers MCU movie, nothing like that. So all this stuff is still going on. Yeah, you're not going to because they bought Fox and they're bringing back mutants. Inhumans were Plan B. Sorry,
but you know, it's
except
funny.
Kamala Khan, you made the cut.
Now it's funny you mentioned mutants because there's a whole other piece that raises questions, and there's some people, I'm one of those people, who believe that knowing that Wanda, and see, this is one of those times where it's like being a geek pays off and being a geek is a hindrance. Once upon a time, we would not have known that Emily Osment was already like a part of Doctor Strange.
Emily Osment? You mean Emily Olsen?
Emily Olsen.
Emily Osment was the homegirl.
That's the girl from Hannah Montana. Okay, so Emily Olsen. We wouldn't have known that Emily Olsen was a part of Doctor Strange and like, you know, the multiverse and whatnot. And so, or Multiverse of Madness. And so the fact that we
Emily?
Yeah, Emily Olsen. That's Wanda's real name.
That was
Elizabeth Olsen?
Oh shit.
Okay.
Yes,
Let me help you guys out.
Elizabeth Olsen.
The one time. Okay, so I'm not playing Seen It right now. Okay, I'm not.
Over to.
I'm not playing Seen It at the moment. And normally I would still win. Okay, so the youngest of the Olsen, you know what I'm saying? She's not a twin. She's not a triplet. Mary-Kate and Ashley, her older sisters. Anyway, so, okay. Emily Olsen, not Osment. Emily Olsen.
Elizabeth
Olsen.
Elizabeth.
So we know that Wanda's gonna be in. Is that good with y'all? Can I just say Wanda?
We good? Can say Wanda.
Yeah, you good.
Wanda, be good. Elizabeth Olsen, I apologize.
My bad.
You're fine as hell. We're sorry for his mistake.
My bad, Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody posted a whole meme. Whew, I get it. I'm agreeing. Anyway, so Wanda's gonna be in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and because we know that she's gonna be in that, we already know that. In a sense, it doesn't really matter what happens in the show because we know that she's going to get out of this. Whatever this is, we know that she's going to be out of it. And as I was kind of mentioning earlier, and, to hell with it, I saw in the casting information, I saw Agent Wu, which is Randall Park. Is it Randall Park or Randall Pack? Somebody correct me on that. Okay. Randall Park, who played Agent Wu in Ant-Man. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things where it's like earlier when we were discussing the voice on the radio where it was like maybe it said help me Wanda because the song that was playing at the time was the Beach Boys and the song was actually called Help Me Rhonda. You know what I'm saying? So it's like are they talking to her or is she just hearing what she wants to hear? And then you look at the credits and you get a whole credit for somebody in the show who technically wasn't in the show because he just had that one little voice moment, and that's kind of a moment that's spoiled. Now we know that Wanda's going to be in Multiverse of Madness. That's a moment that's kind of spoiled. So we know that no matter what happens in the show, she's going to get through it. Or we know she's at least going to survive it because she's already cast in the next. It was kind of like when when Infinity War happened and we got the snap, it was like, yo, they just killed off like half of Marvel. But you know what? They already got a Spider-Man movie planned. They already got a Black Panther movie planned. They not dead. It had that weight, but it didn't have that weight. You know what I'm saying? Because like you already knew where we were going with it. Like you already knew that would be resolved. And that takes us back to that sitcom scenario where we know at the end of 22 minutes, everything's going to have a nice, pretty little bow.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't give it that full certainty because it's still the multiverse of madness. Like shit can still go sideways. And I'm not saying that what you're saying is not going to happen. Like I'm actually agreeing with you. I think that it's going that direction, but I'm not going to rule out that something drastic could happen at the end of this and it not be what it seems, or we get an alternate universe version of Wanda or freaking whatever. Because like Loki, we already know Loki and stuff like that as part of his series.
Evan Peters
is a Loki from an alternate timeline that's running the show. He's the one that's alive.
Evan Peters has been cast for WandaVision. That's the type of thing that like. That is the problem with this information society. It is very difficult for them to keep information under wraps. For those of you who don't follow, Evan Peters played Quicksilver in
Fox Universe.
The Fox movies. So in all the X-Men movies, Quicksilver, where he did that 80s montage, dun, 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 and he was like running through and like, sweet dreams are made of these. Who was that? Eurythmics. He was running to that, and the shit was awesome. And that's like probably one of the best speedster moments we've seen in like anything. He was there. He played Quicksilver. That was Piotr, who is her brother, which we just talked about in episode 3 when Geraldine was talking, and they were like, oh, your brother, because she mentioned she's a twin. Because shocker, she had twins, just like she did in the comics, and they're named Billy and Tommy, just like they are in the comics.
Weren't conceived the same way. Well, as far as we know.
Just like they were in the cop, you know what I'm saying?
Because they're originally conceived from fragments of Mephisto, Billy Maximoff, Tommy Kaplan, Wiccan, Magic. Speed, Young Avengers.
Ultimately, they were conceived by her wanting them and thinking I should have them and made them.
She made a deal with Mephisto, so it wasn't just her wanting them. There was a little bit more moving parts involved, so. I got to be specific with that. Like, it was a deal
because you know what? Because Mephisto is already been established and shown and exists, and that ties in directly to Doctor Strange. I concede to that point being more accurate than my statement.
The devil is in the details.
Well, this is what I want to say. I feel like even though that these people are going to be in these other projects, I feel like that shouldn't take away from like the mystery of like how do we get there. And I think that's one thing, like if you're a comic fan, you kind of get that, because it's like if they're gonna, like, when they decided to kill Superman, everybody knew they were gonna kill Superman a long time before the issue ever came out. So you wasn't ever gonna read an issue where you just got to the end and Superman was dead and you didn't know that it was gonna happen, because it was like a big deal. It's a big deal to like kill off these characters.
It was titled The Death of Superman.
Exactly. So I think that like when we're dealing with these comic characters, we kind of still have to keep that context of, we know these people are going to show up in these other things later, but we don't know what condition they're going to show up in. We don't know if they're going to be a good guy or a bad guy by the end of what we're watching right now. We don't know how this person and this person are going to, the classic comic book, two heroes where we as readers, we know they're heroes. But when they first meet, what do? Fight. Every time.
Or Captain America.
You know what I mean?
First time they met for the Avengers. Started throwing hands.
Exactly. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I think like that's another like viewer psychology thing where
his skills against the Avengers.
Right. That's one of those like viewership things where we got to kind of go into it like, this is not The Wire. We're not about like you don't have to be on the edge of your seat about who's going to die and who's going to make it to the end of the episode or make it to the end of the season, because that's not what comic books are. That's not what this universe is. It's okay to know that Wanda lives and is going to be in the multitude of madness, because we don't know what she's going to be at the end of this series. There's so much potential. There's so many different places that you can go with it. And I think as viewers, we got to kind of use that mentality and just be able to enjoy the show more, because
enjoy the scenery along the way.
Death is not the like trump card in comic book.
People don't want to enjoy the scenery though. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of the point, is we've gotten so accustomed to getting all of the information right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, while I personally think that enjoying the scenery is the way to go for this show, and I've been enjoying it, I've made it a point to like try to discover as many Easter eggs per episode as I can to say that I got them before I was told about them. That's my personal goal. And so far I'm only down like 10 things, and like, who the hell would have known that? Except like the set designer who did research on it. Come on, they didn't just know that shit. But all in all, there's a ton of details that have been put into this show, and there's a lot of information that has already been given to us, and not as much of it. It requires you to have that knowledge. I would say 50%, maybe not even 50%. Jeff, could you answer this question? Do you have that piece of insight to say we are 3 episodes in? The average viewer, would they have to have a level 8 comic book knowledge to get all of the references and Easter eggs, or is that like they could have a level 4 and they should be caught up?
Nah, like I don't even think like if you have a level 4 comic book knowledge, you pretty much just know Wanda and Vision like exist and they're on the Avengers
Right,
and
like
they
that's
get married.
MCU. Like you saw
I
MCU
yeah,
and you know they
I
date.
think I think that I think that to get into some of the territory that we've gotten into in this conversation, like level 8 is like minimum in terms of like understanding, you know, because I think about it like this.
We
Like
haven't even covered
if
her
you're level 4,
capabilities. We haven't even
right?
gone in
Like
depth as far as what she could do or is potentially doing. We haven't even touched that
and
part.
and and that's kind of why I like how they're like building it up, right? Because if you're, let's say you're a level 4 comic knowledge person, like you've seen all the movies, you read a couple things, but you're not really like deep into it, right? Like like if I said Wanda and I said Vision, you know who that is. You could get a visual in your mind of who those characters are
I'm with
because
you.
they're not like A-listers, you know what I mean? Even though they've been in really, really big movies. If I if if you were to watch WandaVision and she came in on episode 1 with all of the capabilities and control of those abilities that us as like 7, 8, 9, 10 level people have in terms of comics, where we understand her capabilities, or at least we understand like what her maximum capabilities are.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like we understand what the maximum is. Now we know MCU is going to be somewhere within a range there, but we know what she's capable of. Like we understand what the words "no more mutants" means, and we understand what
House
that
of M.
means, like on a global scale, right? But
Literally.
level 4 person isn't going to know that. So
198. Literally.
if if she comes in on episode 1 with no more mutants powers, after all we've seen her do is like this and like almost fuck Thanos up, like one on one, you're gonna come into episode 1 as like a level 4 person, just like, wait, how she do all this? Where did all this come from? So
Right.
it's kind of like those people kind of need the slow build as well as us needing the slow build so that we can catch all of the Easter eggs and so that we can all appreciate it. It's like it works on both levels, and like I feel like it's one of those things where sometimes we kind of try to like separate and say like, okay, well they had to do that for the people who like don't know that much about comics, but it's like there's a duality to it, and it's working on more than one level. And you know, us as major comic fans, we're getting like so much to digest, but it's just like just because other people are like digesting different things than us doesn't mean they're digesting less than us, because they don't know what Wanda's capabilities are. So they might not even know like like we've all kind of made the deduction that Wanda is controlling this world because we understand her powers and her capabilities.
Right.
If you don't have that understanding of Wanda, which you wouldn't just by watching the MCU, you're gonna just like,
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would be. I won't really say a problem, but I can see how that would be problematic in terms of your
it's not even.
understanding.
But I feel like the way they're handling it though keeps it from being problematic, because all ranges of people get a set of questions that you're asking. Like they might not be noticing what we're noticing, but they're noticing something maybe at a more root level. And so at the end of the show, we're all going to be, because like we're not, like for instance, Monica Rambeau's necklace, Geraldine's necklace, when she's like, what's that symbol? And then we look at it, it's a
Yeah.
sword. And then we can think we know what sword is. Do level 4 comic people know what sword is? Not
No.
really, but
It's some level
they know.
7 and 8 comic book people who don't know what sword is.
Right.
That is very specific. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that regard, and I think it's safe to say, obviously, and we probably both agree on this point. Will, Brent, you all feel free to chime in on this as well. But it is safe to say that you are being given what you require from WandaVision. It is not what you think you should get, and it's really kind of coming down to a trust the process kind of situation.
It's one of those conversations where it's like when you ask somebody a question and they try to like answer the question that they think you're asking and not the question you're actually asking because they think you're like trying to like lead them to a certain point, and you're just like, fam, can you just answer the question that I'm asking? Answer the question I'm asking, not the question you think I'm asking. And WandaVision is definitely a show that's like, watch the show that we're putting out there, not the show you think we're trying to put out there.
Right. And that is definitely difficult, especially for those people who do want to try to like answer the questions and solve the mystery and figure it out. Because we have to like look in advance for that. You still that's for that. I mean, it's. I am the type of person, I like to try to figure out what's going on and who done it and have an answer before the episode is over. And one of the things that I actually appreciate and like about WandaVision is that it doesn't matter what I think. When they show me what they're going to show me, it's not even close to what I was trying to figure out. So there's still something that they are wanting to tell me. And right now, I'm so busy trying to guess what that is that I'm probably not even in the ballpark of what's happening with WandaVision. I mean, I could give a full theory. And I honestly, I almost feel like, Jeff, obviously you can't do that because you know, so we're not going to ask you. But
but I mean, I think like this was the episode that kind of I think this was the episode that was like, you're either gonna watch
this pulled the blind
with the show or you're not.
This was that moment in The Wizard of Oz where you found out there was a man behind the curtain.
Right.
If you saw like, this episode and you're still really confused and you don't really know what's happening, maybe this ain't the show for you. Because I do agree. I do think that there was a definite indicator in this one episode. And it kind of helps you decide how you should be viewing this moving forward, literally. And I've enjoyed the series up to this point. I enjoyed all of the tidbits of information that I got from this episode, this season. And I am definitely looking forward to this coming Friday because with what they've given me so far, I feel like they would have to answer a certain number of questions in episode 4 to keep, I'm going to say this loosely and lightly, they have to give us a certain amount in episode 4 to keep a number of people encased in this world. You see what I mean,
this
there?
Is what I think this is what like I found. Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like that's not. I mean, I could talk about that. It's like not even a spoiler anymore. There's clearly like some sort of like bubble, force field, something where Geraldine was inside of it,
and now she
had her thing with Wanda. She's not in it now. And we don't have all the answers.
She was glowing red when she got pushed out of said bubble, because I noticed there were like all these.
There was
lights.
No colors for the bubble itself. There was colors around her when she got kicked out of said bubble. So who is containing who is my main question.
I mean, here's my theory, and Brent, feel free to give yours. Will, feel free to give yours in just a moment. My theory, as I've already pointed out, is she's dealt with some stuff. She's had some issues. I think one day she laid down to sleep, whether that was intentional or the result of bad medication. I don't know. She is under a certain level of stress. And as a result of that level of stress, she is looking for her happy place. And she finally found her happy place. And when she found her happy place, she actually created her happy place. Her happy place exists in a town that has a name similar to the kind of town that she would have seen on TV. Her neighbors are the kind of neighbors who would have been on TV. We have Agnes, who constantly talks about Ralph, but we never see Ralph. But that must explain that him working all the time means he makes enough money that only one person can work, which leaves her free to do what she needs to do and investigate and be nosy and snoop and find out all the gossip and the tea in town. We see the neighbor at one point. Vision comes out. He's speaking to the neighbor. The neighbor's actually cutting into it's like a brick wall surrounding the house, like a little retention wall of some sort, or just like a privacy wall. He's cutting into that with the hedge clippers. So obviously they're not doing a good job, but they're still like cutting through. And he kind of directs Leonardo to, well, not Leonardo. He give me a second. Too many thoughts. There is a moment where Wanda is trying to control everybody that's inside this bubble, and she is not able to control the neighbor as he's cutting through the wall.
Because her concentration was broken dealing with the chick in the
dealing
house
with-
who
she's dealing
said
with
Pietro's
pregnancy
name
and all that
and what
kind of
happened.
stuff.
The pregnancy.
Right. She's dealing with the pregnancy and the concentration is broken. And in that time period, the neighbor actually has a moment of clarity where he's free. Agnes happens to show up in that time. And simultaneously, Vision walks outside and is having a conversation with both Agnes and the neighbor. Very unique conversation that takes place. It does not close the circuit that Wanda would need for the circuit to be closed. And he's pulled back into the roster. We get a moment with the twins, Billy and Tommy. I like the little back and forth they had. Wiccan and Speed. There's a whole conversation I mentioned earlier that Evan Peters was casted in this series, and a lot of people are, of course, trying to figure out who he's going to be. Is he going to be Quicksilver here, which could be a multiverse tie-in? That would technically be her brother still in a multiverse context. And they've done a really good job with the way he moves in the movies. Would they keep that effect? That's a question. I don't think Evan Peters is going to be the brother. I don't think he's going to be Pietro. We saw him die. Is that your hand raised, or you?
No, I'm just leaning.
Oh, okay.
I
I could tell. I wasn't sure. I thought you had your hand raised. I was like, "What you got, Jeff?" I was hoping you were going to.
Well,
answer
I
that
mean, I
question
was
for me.
thinking about what you were talking about with the neighbors outside and like kind of the cutting back and forth between outside and inside when like, you know, Wanda's trying to deal with like Geraldine, and then the neighbors outside are, I feel like the conversation with the neighbors outside is interesting because it's like halfway
Into the
Don't trust
Conversation, Agnes
don't
is
trust
basically in charge of
Geraldine.
everything.
Yeah. Well, she's like, don't trust Geraldine. Like, you don't know, like, she doesn't even have a house. She doesn't belong here. Like, you know what I mean? But then there's also this whole, like, we can't leave. We can't talk about this, yada, yada, yada. So I felt like that was like interesting duality there, but I think that was a good point that you guys pointed out about how like when she was trying to deal with Geraldine and realized there was something inside that was like not something she was currently under
In control
control of.
of.
Even when she was like, "What is that symbol? What's that necklace?" Like the sword on her necklace doesn't exactly look like the sword that was on the like
On the
little
notepad or on the
helicopter
helicopter.
or yeah, or any of that stuff that we saw. So I'm kind of curious why she kind of was
Focused
drawn
in
to
on
that
that.
necklace, focused in on that, made that connection as well. Like I think all of it is just kind of like I think this is just like a really good episode. And I think that
I think we
kind
got a
of
good
leaving
bit of
it,
transition in this episode.
yeah,
And this honestly should have been the episode that
They
brought
ended like the like 3 quick episodes. They hit you with these 3, and then you go to your weekly from there. I feel like that would have been packaged better.
yeah, I agree.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you probably could have shortened a little bit out of episodes 1 and 2 to
Made it like
take
1 hour long
these
episode.
two,
Just bam.
or even if you did like a 2-hour series season premiere. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not even 2 hours, but like it could have been a special series premiere, and these 3 episodes could have been the intro to
I thought it
set
was
up
fine.
everything.
I thought it was fine the way it was. I think it's enough to
I
get
mean,
people
I'm
talking.
good with it personally.
Yeah,
I'm good with it too.
I think
But for the
it was
people
meant to
who
get people talking. Like, what's going on is with that, or people who are saying that it's trash. Them people or whatever. So that, and now
Wait,
people are
what did
gonna
they
go
say?
and
What?
Now
Just-
we're gonna go on a tangent. No.
so, but now people are gonna go. Okay, let me go check it out. Let me see what it's about. Let me see what's going on. And their numbers are going up because now people who weren't necessarily so interested in it, like, okay, let me see what's going on, or let me see what you're talking about, or the Easter egg videos. Like, there's things that were put out there just for that, and I think that's enough to get people to, okay, let's see what's going on. All right, well, all right, we got the 2-episode premiere and stuff like that. All right, well, I guess I'll see if it gets better next week or whatever the case may be, and see
yeah,
what happens. So you got those people that go and see if it gets better next week, and then the people who are like, I'm turned off for it. I'm done. Like, it's not really hitting. The people who saw it are going to tell those people like, yo, what just happened? Stuff like that. So now everybody's running back to watch episode 3 to see what they're talking about, and
right,
now everybody's invested and
right.
like, okay, where's this going? So I
This,
think
Like
this
when the
episode literally
like
is the one for the corner. It's either
Yeah.
you're completely all in now or you're completely out. You
Yeah.
know,
or
you
like
have to
episode
decide.
when the episode 8 thread is like popping on Facebook, and then those people who didn't stick with it, they're like, oh wait, what did I miss? Like this sounds like dope. I don't want to get it spoiled. They're gonna go back and watch it. I think a lot of people who quit on it are gonna like go back and give it a chance once like everything is like revealed and we get to the end of it, because it is one of those shows, like I said earlier, it's like
It's a
clearly
slow
kind of
burn that's
reverse
slowly starting to pay
engineered.
off.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and just
Somebody-
like people have just gotten impatient, I think.
My
You
Because
want that
society.
end result without having to put in the work to get to the end result.
Yeah, it's like you just did it for Mandalorian, and you saw how that worked out. I feel like
They did it
most
for
people are
Witcher,
happy
and that
with
was
how
on
that-
I was
Netflix.
happy.
No. They did it
Yeah.
for Witcher on Netflix, and we had to wait weekly for those.
Totally worth it.
Totally.
All right, so
I
let me
watched
ask
them.
y'all this: what do y'all think are like the next? What is y'all kind of like next predictions? I can't really give one, but like,
Obviously.
what do you think? What do you want to see in episode 4? I can talk about that, but like maybe that would be a good way to like wrap up. Just like everybody kind of go around and like say, what do you want to see in episode 4, or what like question? What question are you hoping gets answered like in episode 4?
I just want more on Agatha.
Like,
Tell me what's going on with the witch. She was in charge of that guy, whether she said it or not. As soon as she told him to shut up, he shut up. The dude who was cutting through that wall. Like, as soon as Scarlet Witch lost control, Agatha took charge immediately. She's like, don't trust this chick inside. You're going to listen to what I'm going to do. Don't worry about none of this, Vision. Everything's fine. As soon as she told him everything that was going on, more or less, he went back in the house. He had to get re-scrambled. and you had to start over with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat with you. So like, I kind of want to know how things are going, but again, I'm not really looking for anything in episode 4 and stuff like that. I'm just looking for how it's gonna play out, so like that. Because in my head right now, I'm looking at okay, Scarlet Witch is in there controlling everybody else for the most part, but I think Agatha's pulling the strings on her and stuff like that because somebody else is telling her this is what I need you to do.
Fisto.
Yeah, so it's in there like something. There's several threads in there. It's trying to figure out who's pulling which thread that's making the dance.
Because you got Sword, you got Mephisto, you got Agnes, you got AIM. Like, you have 4 very viable candidates for the overall hierarchy of who's in charge.
You saw the Hydra reference, right? The Hydro.
The Hydra soap. Hydra soap reference.
Which was the Calgon take me away moment. And it's been the same lady.
It's the same people who are doing the commercials.
It's the same 2 people who have been in each of the commercials so far. There were 2 children in that particular commercial, and by the end of the episode, we got 2 children. For me, I think the biggest question I have is I need to know, is Wanda the villain or the prisoner? That is the question that I need answered. And that is going to tell me everything I need to know about everyone else. Because I need to know if S.H.I.E.L.D. is helping her or if they're trying to hinder her.
I'm hoping it's villain.
Are they trying to control her? Because
it's not her barrier. The barrier's not red. And that has always been her MO with everything.
So far. But we've never seen her do anything in black and white. We've never seen her materialize something out of thin air.
I'm pretty sure she materialized that bomb in Wakanda by herself pretty good.
No, because technically that bomb in Wakanda was the bomb that was inside of Rumlow.
Crossbone? Yeah,
Crossbones,
you're right.
Yeah. He was in fact the bomb, and she contained him. She did a little like barrier thing, contained him, and then lifted him up and threw him up, and then he just happened to explode on the side of the building, and that caused the chain reaction explosion within the building. But we've not seen her. The only thing we've seen Wanda do up to this point, prior to this show, we've seen some telekinesis. We've seen some mind control.
A little bit of flying / floating.
We've seen some movement. We've seen that she's able to manipulate her own movement.
She has certain powers on people who have touched the Mind Stone. That weird connection.
Now here's the crazy thing. Vision was made by Loki, by the stone that was inside Loki's scepter.
Which is also where she was created from.
Which is the same stone that her powers are derived from. So the fact that she can control Loki's power, it's not really a shock. I mean, it's not really a surprise because we saw that in Civil War where Barton is like being held by Loki and she does her like funky finger thing and his stone starts glowing and he just like Barton like phases through him as he became intangible. Then when he tried to fight back, she was like, no, and he stopped moving. Like he got pushed into the ground. So for me, the biggest question is, we already kind of know and understand that she is subconsciously creating everything that we see. Whether she intends to or not, we do realize that she is subconsciously in control. When she is focused on this thing over here to the right, she doesn't see this conversation that's happening with her neighbors to the left. The doctor indicates, now the doctor was a key witness to all of the foolishness that was taking place in her house. Like he was there. He saw it. Geraldine saw it. And yet they're just willing to overlook it and write it off like it's no big deal. If Vision picked this dude up, put him on his back, and ran at the speed he ran to get back to the house, nah, bruh. I understand she pregnant and she having this baby, but I got some questions. And we gonna talk about that before we do anything else, because that's how the real world works. But maybe we're not in the real world. Maybe we're in a virtual world. Maybe we're in the Matrix and she's Neo. I just need to know who's controlling Wanda. Is she in control of herself and she's the villain? Or is Sword controlling her and she's just an innocent, air quote innocent. She's just a bystander in this situation. That's the question that I need answered. And if I get the answer to those questions, I can probably put the rest of the puzzle together.
I got one more piece of food for thought.
What you got?
Monica grown up. All right. She's grown up. So like how far into the future are we, or where was she pulled from? What's going on with that? Because you got to remember, I'm thinking Young Avengers, because we now have, Speed and Wiccan on screen.
No, you got to go back, because even though Captain Marvel came out towards the end,
I get that parts with that. But the reason I'm bringing up the time things with that is I want to know like how far in the future, like how far after the events of what happened, what's going on. So with that, the reason I'm trying to place everything is because Speed and Wiccan are now here. So with that, So if
Speed and Wiccan in here, are you trying to determine when does WandaVision take place?
Not exactly. I'm looking at, because who's the big bad that we're looking at coming to the MCU? Kang the Conqueror, right?
Right.
Kang the Conqueror freaking is originally Iron Lad, right? Iron Lad was the one who brought Speed and Wiccan into the Young Avengers. So you see all the dots are connecting for me looking at that. I'm just curious to see what's going to happen, because they grew up at an advanced rate and stuff like that in her womb. So are they going to have an accelerated growth rate at some point in time going throughout the show and stuff like that? Or after the fact, stuff like that?
Accelerated,
or what's going
like
my mind is kind of
gestation.
Yeah, so my mind is just kind of wondering so that where is it going, because again, you got Speed, you got Wiccan, we got Miss Marvel coming, so with that we've already mentioned freaking Cho, so that's Amadeus Cho and so with that, so that's the Awesome Hulk. So I mean, and we already got a possible Iron Lad here with the kid from Tony Stark. So like there's stuff here, so my mind is just kind of racing and stuff like that. So I gotta word vomit this shit out to kind of start putting it in order to make sense like that, but it's all just kind of floating right now. I'm curious. I can't wait to see.
And for me, I think that's why I just need to know if she is. I need to know how much control she has currently. Is this a forced mental state, or is this a subconscious mental state, or is this an active mental state? If she was like, to hell with everybody, I want my happiness, and this is what happened, cool. If she was like so heartbroken that she went home and this is what happened, cool. If this is like some totally left field, nothing is connected to nothing type stuff, cool. I just need to know which one of those three it is. That's my question. Brent,
so overall,
what's your question?
I already said mine. I need to know how much control Agnes has,
right?
And
Agnes.
what she's her real mission.
So we're all just kind of wondering right now, and it's just gonna see where we go with it.
Either way, we're all pretty pleased, I would say, right?
Yes,
I wasn't happy with the first 2 episodes, but now that I've seen what my buildup is, I jumped the gun. I was wrong.
Thank you. Anybody else? Does anybody else want to finish letting the chicken marinate? We trying to get it cooked. We trying to.
I mean,
any of our viewers out there?
I want to know what we cooking. I want to know the seasoning. What are the sides?
Co-host,
what are my drinks?
Tony is not here to retract his statement and say that he jumped the gun. According to our spoiler thread, make sure you update the spoiler thread after this. Denisha and David were also in agreement, and felt like the first 2 episodes were kind of dragging, and I'm not sure what they thought was supposed to happen, but apparently whatever they thought was supposed to happen didn't happen, because they both were like, middle of the ground, like, They knew something was coming, but weren't impressed with what they had. I've enjoyed all 3 episodes thus far. Even if it was just based on the characters and the writing, like forget the storytelling elements, forget all the other stuff. I laughed at those scenes that were supposed to be laughed at. I watched it as though it was a sitcom and kept being pulled out of the sitcom with the whole MCU bit. Like, oh yeah, that's right.
And
we
Paul
got to
Bettany's
figure all
doing some
that
of his
out.
best acting.
So,
He's
I'm
very
enjoying
enjoyable
it.
to watch.
I'm enjoying it. And yeah, Paul Bettany, amazing. And Wanda has been amazing to watch on screen.
Elizabeth
whoever
Olsen.
she is.
Yes, Elizabeth Olsen has.
Elizabeth Olsen, she's done a fantastic job, and I like the way I see they're going with this character, and if they decide to go a different direction, I will stick with it. So far, I've been nothing but pleased in regards to Wandavision.
Any final thoughts? Everyone pretty
It
content
moved,
with.
it moved from a 7 to a 9 on this last episode. At least
I jumped in the
8,
realm of I need to keep
8.5.
watching. So
You were in the realm of you need to keep watching when they announced it was going to be on Disney Plus.
Well, it was more or less the first 2 episodes were like, am I going to actively watch this, or I'm going to just wait for everyone to dissect it for me so I don't have to do the weekly thing? Based upon episode 3, I'm doing the weekly thing. It's the new Friday thing. It's the new Mandalorian filler for now.
Cool. Is that your consensus, Will? It's the Friday filler?
Hey, look, it's Marvel. I already been all in. I've already seen how they work and stuff like that. So I mean, this is it. Come at me. I want to see everything that they got. I told you, I'm gonna tear it down. Freaking, I'm gonna build it up. Whatever the case may be. You already know with the game and stuff like that. I don't pull no punches. So if I'm liking what I'm liking, hey, I'm in for it. If they fuck up along the way, you're gonna hear about it.
You'll be the first one to tell them.
First one.
Just watch the Marvel's Avengers video.
If they miss a step, we gonna highlight that step, make a bold, and show it to them. Frame it, put it in their living room.
Oh, I'm pulling Scarlet Witch. I'm gonna rewind and replay that bitch all fucking day.
Just keep that on loop. All right. Well, I think I cannot wait till episode 4. It kind of sucks that I gotta wait a whole week. By the time you all see this, it will be Monday, and we will have our spoiler conversation taking place here in just a bit. We have been your Grown A Geeks. I was Sam. That's Brent. We got Jeff, and we have Will. Hopefully you gained something that you did not think about or did not see a perspective, something a little different. We are here to assist you with your suspension of disbelief to help you enjoy this wonderful thing called WandaVision. We have 3 that are liking it as is. One who's a convert says he may have to wait and just see how it goes. I was looking to get 2 to 3 more converts, but everybody conveniently could not be with you tonight. But make sure to follow Grown A Geeks on Facebook. You can actually click the QR code right over there in that corner. We will have a full discussion on this topic. The spoiler thread will be live. We're trying to have this video up and loaded for you Monday by 2 p.m. so that when spoilers go live, this video is available. You can reference this video for the spoiler thread. If you click the QR code over there, that will take you to the YouTube page. Whether you are listening to this on our podcast, which you can find on Anchor FM, that's anchor.fm/grownageeks. They actually have our channel spread out to a multitude of sites that you can get to. I know one of them is Brent, you got that list handy by chance, just out of curiosity? I know I put you on the spot, so I do apologize, but I know you can find us.
You got Apple
Spotify.
Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on my personal favorite, Spotify.
Boom. So if you are listening to just the podcast, take your pick your poison, listen to us there. Make sure whatever you do, you like and subscribe. That is so important. We ask that you like and subscribe. So one, you can be notified of all of the cool content that goes up. But two, it really, really helps us out, and we would greatly appreciate it. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of GAG Admin Chat. We are Grown A Geeks. We're going to throw a little promo out there one more time just to make sure everybody knows that you can go to trendyledproducts.com and save 15% with the code Grown A Geeks. But we have been your geeks. We hope you enjoyed this, and we will holla at you later. Peace.